Magnolia Elaine, born still on March 20th, 2022. Maggie was born at 33 weeks, surrounded by love and family through the most peaceful and beautiful unmedicated birth center birth with my amazing midwife. She's the most beautiful girl I have ever seen, and this is her birth story. Sweet girl, I can't wait to see you again. Mama loves you so, so much. Hey y'all, I'm Haley. Welcome back to my channel. This is going to be part 3 of Maggie's story. If you are just now finding this video, part 1 and part 2 will be linked in the description. Part 1 is about my pregnancy with Magnolia, and then part 2 is from the moment I learned that she no longer had a heartbeat to getting to the birth center. So today is going to be part 3, her birth story, my unmedicated birth at a birth center. So yeah, I'm just going to get started from where we left off. So in part 2, we left off that I had just arrived at the birth center. It was about, I do have notes down here. My midwife did a fantastic job of making notes and putting them on the client care app. So I do have a lot of the exact times throughout her whole birth story, which is really nice. It is a little over 10 months later that I'm making her birth story. So I don't remember everything perfectly, and it was also obviously pretty traumatic with her being still, that I don't remember everything. I do wish I would have recorded this sooner, but it is what it is. So I'm just gonna get started. So at around 8:30, me and Fonda arrived at the birth center. Then whenever I got there, in part 2, I did mention that I had thought that I was leaking water a little bit before we went to the ER, and I continued leaking water, and I had notified my midwife while I was speaking with her, and that next day I was leaking the whole day. About 15 minutes after I got there, my midwife swabbed me to check if my membranes had ruptured, but they tested negative for amniotic fluid. So she said that possibly like the first membranes had popped. I'm not really sure why I tested negative, because I was definitely leaking fluid. After that, we did discuss the natural induction methods that she had for me, which were, she had Cytotec, which is an induction method sometimes they use in hospitals and with miscarriages to help get your body going. It can be dangerous for live births and make the baby's heart rate go down. So I wouldn't recommend that for live births. Then we talked about midwife's brew, and then we talked about different herbs and tinctures that I could use. So I did not want to do any type of pharmaceuticals, so I decided on doing midwife's brew to begin with, and then we talked about I could try some of the tinctures if labor stalled at all. So at Megan ended up, my midwife Megan ended up making the midwife's brew. She had already had everything. We kind of had talked about it beforehand, and she went ahead and got all the ingredients before I arrived at the birth center. At 9:10, my parents got there. Earlier in that day, I don't think I mentioned in part 2, my mom went and got me some supplies, some of the Freedom Mom products from Target. And so she brought that stuff, and she brought with her some blankets and quilts that my grandmother had made. And then my midwife made the midwife's brew, and it was huge. It was the size of a blender. And so it was, I drank a whole Yeti cup, and then I think nearly another Yeti cup full, and I had to drink that within 2 hours. So I was like, okay, this is gonna be very difficult. I wasn't really wanting to eat or anything, so that was difficult. The midwife's brew, the one that my midwife did, was castor oil, almond butter, and some of the smoothie juices, like their naked ones. She said to use either apricot, mango, pineapple, peach, some type of citrusy fruit that I think it just helps to mask the taste. I can't remember exactly which one she did for me. I think it was mango. Because of my parosmia, I was like, okay, well, I don't know if I can have nuts because I can't do peanut butter. So I was worried about the almond butter, and then I don't like mango to begin with, so I was worried about that. And then castor oil. Who wants to drink castor oil? And then it also had champagne in it, which I'm not sure exactly what that does either. She kind of said it just helps to relax you. So she made that, and I started drinking that. At 9:15, I allowed her to check for fetal heart tones. So I laid back on the bed, and she put the Doppler on my belly. Of course, I was hoping, praying that she had her heart tones there and we didn't have to go through with all this, but of course that was not the case. So I immediately just pushed her hand away and told her okay. So we got confirmation. I wanted to make sure, so we got confirmation, and I didn't want that on my stomach anymore. So she put it on for a very, very short time. And then so for the next about 2 hours, I was just drinking the midwife's brew, talking with my parents, waiting on my sister and my brother to get there. And we were walking around a little bit. We walked outside. And then at 11 o'clock, they ordered pizza. Fonda was hungry, and honestly, I can't remember if I ate any pizza. I know I didn't really feel like eating, so I really don't think that I ate pizza, but I can't remember. I know I was sitting in there with them eating pizza. It was all so weird because the whole time we're sitting there, and it's just like we're able to have normal conversations here and there, and I think I was just in shock. I think everybody was kind of in shock, and you don't think that you think it's just going to be like all sad the whole time. Like you're just going to be crying the whole time, but the emotions of grief are just like all over the place. So like I would go into the restroom and look at myself in the mirror, and I would just start crying because I seen my belly, and I knew that it wasn't going to be like that for very much longer, and that I wasn't going to get a baby after. And then I would go in there and we'd be laughing. We watched some TV, just walked around doing normal stuff. That was at about 11 o'clock. So everybody ate, and then at 11:30, my sister and my brother got there. She brought a gift from my friend Brittany, which I talked about, I think, in the last part. This bee right here. She brought 2 of those, one for Maggie and one for Corbin. That's Maggie's that she had with her. And then Corbin put his in the casket with Maggie. So they were able to like switch toys, and she was always able to have something of his. Then Oh yeah, at 11 o'clock, whenever we ordered the pizza, I finished the midwife's brew. Like I said, we had finished it within 2 hours. So I did that, and then I was waiting for them to arrive. And I was pretty tired. I hadn't slept the whole night before because I couldn't sleep the way that it felt, her being in my stomach. I talked about it in the last part, but it felt like a bowling ball was just in my stomach, and I couldn't sleep through that. So I really was running. I was like 2 days with no sleep pretty much. So I did try to go to sleep after that. At about 12 a.m. I went to sleep about 30 minutes after my siblings got there. And then I slept getting up and down using the restroom a lot. TMI, birth is TMI, but the midwife's brew does make you use the restroom a lot. It clears you out. It mimics, so what it does, it makes your uterus contract, and it also makes your intestines contract. So there's that. And then contractions started about 2 a.m. So about 2 hours after I finished the midwife's brew, I started getting some contractions as I was waking up to use the restroom. But they weren't that bad. They were very light contractions, not too strong and not consistent at all. I was able to sleep through them. And then at about 4:30, I finally got up because I was just tossing and turning, couldn't sleep through the contraction. So I woke up Fonda, and then we went and told Megan. She was sleeping in the birth center. She also had been up all night and all the day before. So she was sleeping on the couch. We went and told her that contractions were starting and that we were going to go walk around some. Walking helps me a lot deal with the contractions. So we walked around in the building and we walked around outside some, just me and Fonda. My parents were still sleeping. And then, so for about an hour, from about 5 to about 6, we were walking around and just dealing with the contractions that way. And then at 6:20, I went to the restroom again and lost some mucus plug. So Fonda went and told Megan. She came in, she asked if I wanted to have a vaginal exam and see how far dilated I was. I was 4 centimeters dilated, 75% effaced, and she was at a -3 station. You have to be 10 centimeters dilated and 100% effaced to be complete. And then a -3 station is basically she was sitting like at the top of my pelvis opening about here, so not in the opening, but she wasn't floating anymore. She wasn't up very high. So she asked me how my contractions were, and I told her that they were pretty consistent. They were getting stronger, but they weren't really painful. I did have to kind of stop walking and just kind of breathe through them a little bit, but they weren't bad. I had 1 or 2 times where there was about 10 minutes where I did not have a contraction, and then after that they slowly started to get less painful. And so she asked me if I wanted to get a membrane sweep. I honestly don't remember this, so I'm so glad that she took so many notes because I don't remember her asking. I don't even remember getting a membrane sweep at all. But she did ask, she said, and I agreed, and so we did the membrane sweep. I'm sure that I agreed because I wanted labor to progress faster. At that time, she did tell me whenever she did the membrane sweep that she could feel the bag of water, that it was bulging slightly, and she recommended that I started timing contractions. Throughout this whole thing, I'm sure I'm going to post pictures of, if I have any pictures. So I did start timing contractions, and I did take a screenshot of some of my contractions. I remember after her birth looking through my photos and seeing that, and I think that it was an accident. I don't think that I meant to take a screenshot, but I'm so glad that I did. So that was at about 7:15 that she came back and checked the timing of my contractions. She also did, she checked my temperature, my heart rate, and my blood pressure at that time. All were great. Fonda's sister came with, she brought kolaches for everybody. I did not eat, but a lot of other people did. And then my contractions were about every 2 minutes, and they lasted for about 35 to 45 seconds. They were pretty strong at that time. I believe at that time I was in the room. I labored and birthed the whole time, standing, kind of leaning on the bed and just rocking back and forth. That's what helps me. That's how I labored with Corbin also. But she still felt really high, so I figured I still had a while to go. Megan suggested that I get into a deep, wide squat to try and bring her down some more, because when she checked, she was only at a -3 station. I tried. No, that was so painful. It was like her head was pushing up against my pelvic bone. Because she wasn't alive, she wasn't moving with me. So some positions were extremely painful. And then, so at that time, she did teach Fonda how to do hip squeezes. That was amazing. The hip squeezes helped so much. I was having contractions in my back and in the front. So Fonda did that for a while. And then around 8:15, I went to the restroom, and I had lost more of my mucus plug. And at that time, my contractions had slowed down some more. So I was just kind of taking a break on the birth ball and just rolling around, trying to help her to lower down more. At 8:30, I did request to have some of the tinctures, because labor had slowed down a lot, and I didn't want it to stop. I was having big breaks, and my contractions were not as painful at all, when only like an hour before that I was needing comfort measures. So she brought in cotton root bark, and I took a dropper full of that. And then I walked around the birthing center again, like doing laps this time, not just leisurely walking, trying to get contractions started. I remember I did some lunges. I did those with Corbin also. I squatted as I could because the contractions were not as bad. And that was at 8:30. And then at 9:30, I took another dropper full of cotton root bark. About 10:10, she marked down. So about at 10 o'clock, my contractions got a lot closer. Like I could not take a breath in between. It was like they were going into each other. I maybe have had like 30 seconds, 15 seconds to like take a breath and just breathe, and then another contraction would roll through. The whole time I was leaning over the bed with my arms up on a pillow on the side of the bed, and just rocking back and forth. Fonda was doing hip squeezes pretty much the entire time. And then if I had a minute to breathe, I would sit on the birth ball just for a second, just to relax my legs, because my legs were so exhausted. But no other position helped. She also did, during that time, ask me to get on the bed and try hands and knees so that I was supported more. My legs weren't as tired. But as soon as I got in that position, it was so painful, so painful. Again, like her head was just hitting my pelvic bone. And whenever there was a contraction, it was just like bone on bone. So very, very painful. And so that did not work. So my legs were so exhausted. I started to feel like I had to pee like nonstop. I was going to the restroom a lot and not really peeing. So that told me and Megan that her head was much lower and she had dropped. Corbin's awake. Okay, he is in the playroom with movie and lunch. So let's see if I can finish this. Okay, so at about 10 o'clock, my contractions were very, very, very strong, back to back, no break. And then at 10:52, she wrote down. I'm so happy that she wrote all these times down. I'm so glad that I have the play-by-play. I really wish that I would have recorded everything, her birth, but I wasn't thinking about that at all. So at 10:52, I started to feel her move down. I remember just standing on the side of the bed and just saying, like, she's coming, she's coming, she's coming. And I didn't even have to push at all. My body just did it for me. And with Corbin, I pushed very hard. It was like such an amazing experience. But I remember thinking in that moment, like, she's coming, being like excited to see her, ready for birth to be over, but at the same time, not wanting any of it to be over. Not wanting to see her. I was so scared. I didn't know what she was going to look like. I didn't know if she was going to be like recognizable as a baby. I didn't know how much damage she would have. My water broke as I was saying, she's coming, she's coming. My water had not broken up until right before birth, the same exact way that Corbin's was. And as soon as my water broke, I had another contraction or so, and I was ripping off my shorts. I still had my shorts on and everything. Megan and Fonda were helping me take those down. I think Megan was kind of like instructing Fonda on things to do. Honestly, do not remember who was in the room at the time that I was giving birth. I know that my mom was in there. My dad wasn't in there for a little while, but I think as soon as he heard me give birth, he came in. So I had her. Megan was behind me. I was standing. Fonda was on my left side. Megan was on my right side. As soon as my water broke, she went down. She caught her and then gave her to me through my legs. And I immediately just held her to my chest. And up until that point, I really hadn't cried much. But that is like when I was able to just like let everything go, and she was finally here. And I just started crying and crying. I put her to my chest. Megan helped me get on bed. Fonda might have helped me too. I laid down with her on my chest for a while. Everyone was crying but her. That was the hardest part of this whole experience, was her coming out and not crying. And up until that very moment, even after all the Dopplers, even after the ultrasound, we were all still praying that she would be alive and she would have cried. I was praying that God would just work a miracle. Fonda was crying. I remember, I can hear it like it was yesterday. I love talking about her birth so much. And I didn't really get emotional about any of it until now. Kind of the same way her birth went. And these moments kind of haunt me. Like my scream haunts me sometimes after, you know, in that moment that I found out that her heart was no longer beating. And I just remember hearing Fonda saying, "That's my baby," over and over and over again, and crying. And he is so tough. He's so strong, and he's a man. He doesn't cry a lot. I can count on less than 5 fingers, you know, the amount of times that I've seen him really cry. And that was just, it was just so heartbreaking. So I laid there with her for a while. So she was born at 10:55 a.m. At 11:04, I birthed the placenta. I do remember my midwife telling me that I was having some heavy bleeding and she was worried about hemorrhaging. And now I'm not sure if some of that blood was also Maggie's, because, you know, she had already lost some blood. And so at that time, she did say that it was best that I took the Cytotec, because it does act like Pitocin and starts contractions. And if you do hemorrhage after birth, they do give you Pitocin to try and stop the hemorrhaging, try to stop the bleeding. So I did take that at 11:04. For the next hour, I was having very bad, very, very, very bad after pain contractions from the Cytotec. And so I just laid there with her on my chest that whole time. Everybody was in there looking at her and everything for a while, and then they all left and gave me and Fonda some time alone with her. I took my shirt off so that I could do skin to skin. I would have never even thought to do that if Megan wouldn't have told me, you know, hey, do you want to do this? I love her so much. That is like one of the most precious memories to me. Through this, I don't have really any pictures of me in labor or anything, but as I'm talking about this last stuff, I am going to post some pictures of her after I had her and some of those first moments after birth. So I did skin to skin for about 30-45 minutes. I knew we weren't going to have a lot of time with her, so I wanted everybody else to be able to come in. So at 12:10, she did her exam. She looked over her placenta. Her placenta looked normal to her. The cord insertion was fine at her belly button and at the placenta. Then Fonda cut her cord at 12:10, and then Fonda weighed her. Megan placed Maggie into the cloth that midwives use to weigh the babies, and Fonda weighed her. She weighed 3 pounds and 12 ounces, and she was 17 and 3/4 inches long at 33 weeks. So she was the perfect size for her, and she actually probably would have been bigger than her brother if she would have been born full term. Corbin was only 6 pounds, 6 ounces, and he was born at 39 weeks. So only about 3 pounds more than her. So at that point, I did get in the water finally. I'd never got in the water during her labor, really because I was scared to use the need to use the bathroom and have to get in and out in the middle of a contraction. So I never did that, but I did get in there with the after labor pains on the Cytotec, and that helped so much. So I know that in a future birth, I will definitely use water for pain management. So I got in the bath. I was in there for a little while. Fonda was holding her, and then I wanted to get out and get dressed so that everybody else could come in and hold her. I knew we weren't going to have very much time because she did have to go to the funeral home. And we didn't have a cuddle cot or anything to keep her cool and to keep her organs okay. So everybody came in and we all took a ton of pictures. We did some arts and craft things with her. I showed a couple of them before. One is her hands and feet right here. Her birth certificate is up here. You can't see it, but it's up there. And Megan did her footprints. And then we have a picture on the wall. I'll just insert some pictures. A big canvas that we did of all of her hands. And then I have another one of all of her hands. So we did those. Because my pains were so strong, after I got out of the bath, I was just pretty much laying on the bed and with a heating pad, and took pain medication almost immediately, just Tylenol and Advil. So Fonda got her dressed. She wore a diaper of Corbin's, one of his newborn diapers from the hospital. So he put that on her. My mom we had brought a couple different outfits. I actually wanted to dress her a couple different times, but we just didn't have time for it. So this is the outfit she wore back here. His sister helped dress her. He gave her a bath after she was weighed. Megan helped with that. And I believe that was before I got in the bath. She was given a bath. Mostly just her hair. She had a ton of vernix in her hair, a lot. So we were trying to be very careful with her. Stillborn babies are extremely fragile. So we were having to be very careful with her. But so they did dress her, put a diaper on her. She did have meconium coming out, so she needed a diaper on. I think I've talked about it before in a video, but not getting to do any of that stuff with her is extremely hard. I think about it all the time. It's one reason why I dress her doll and put clothes on her doll. Because I was in so much pain. I didn't get to bathe her and I didn't get to dress her, and that is very hard. I'm so glad that Fonda got to have that bonding experience with her, because as the mom, we get to feel them in our bellies forever, for the whole pregnancy. We get to feel them kick. My placenta was anterior, so it was on the front, and so Fonda, I think, might have gotten to feel her move pretty much only one time, and that was the day before she passed away. Her movements were very strong, which now I know is a sign that something could be wrong. I just thought she was kicking hard, and she was getting bigger, and she was getting stronger, but she was getting weaker. So yeah, that's a sore spot for me, getting her dressed. So we just took tons of pictures of her, And then after she was dressed, everybody got to hold her. So Fonda's sister got to hold her. Both of my siblings, they came in, and they both got to hold her, and my parents both got to hold her. Yeah, I'm sure I'm gonna put pictures up of all of them holding them, and these pictures of my mom holding her really get to me. They make me cry every time. As a child, like, you really don't know how much your parents love you. I mean, like, you know they love you, you know, but you don't know until you have kids. And even more whenever you lose a kid. And to see how upset she was and how much she loved Maggie. It's just really hard to see the people that you love grieve your baby also. So my sister came with Corbin. She brought Corbin back whenever she was there. We took all of our pictures, did our arts and stuff, and then they brought him back. He's very familiar with the birth center. He loves it. They have a playroom in there. So he was in there. And so he got to meet Maggie. I might insert a little clip of the video of him meeting her. Hi.
You got a snack.
Yeah, he didn't want to share.
See the baby? Yeah. What do you think? Oh, is she sweet? That's Maggie, baby. Look at her fingers. Those are her fingers. They're little, huh? Say, oh. And then we sat down and we took pictures as a family. It's in the intro video, the pictures of us. So we took those together. And at that time, Megan had already called the funeral home. So they were on their way. And then me and Fonda took some pictures with her. And those pictures were taken at like about 2:40, 2:45. And those are the last pictures we have with her. After we took those pictures in the birthing room, we went out and we sat on the couch, and the lady got there for Maggie. Megan said her name was Vanessa. I'm sure she took great care of her. I was holding her and I couldn't give her to that lady. I just couldn't be the one to do it. So my dad took her. And handed her to the lady. And she put her little body in the bag. I had to sign papers releasing her to the funeral home, and what all I was leaving with them. So I had to make sure I wrote down that she had all her clothes with her. And at 3 p.m. she walked out of the building with our baby instead of us walking out with her. And we just held Corbin and cried. Through that time, before she got there, my family was already helping packing everything up. And so we got everything, we put everything in the car, and we all left, and everybody was headed back to my apartment. My grandma was there with my nephew, and so my mom, my dad, my sister, and my brother all came back to our apartment. On the way there, me and Fonda stopped and picked up everybody food because nobody had eaten. We all ate cheeseburgers and then hung out at our house, talked, and I don't really remember much, honestly. I was just so numb with everybody there. I was just, I honestly can't remember much that happened. So everybody left. My mom took Corbin. I didn't want him there again that night. But yeah, so that is her birth story. I love talking about her birth. I love that I was able to give birth to her at the birth center. Very comfortable with all of my family there. Because of COVID, I wouldn't have been able to have my whole family there. If I would have had her at a hospital, I probably would have been induced with Pitocin and probably would have had to get an epidural. I talked about this in the last part, but it's just personal preference for me. I didn't want to take all that medication. Unfortunately, I did have to take Cytotec at the end, but it is much better than hemorrhaging or having to be transferred to a hospital. So I'm so glad that midwives are equipped with that sort of stuff. I also did not want to do it that way because I wanted it to be as it would have been if she would have been alive. I wanted to feel everything. I wanted to remember every part of the experience of having her in my stomach, giving birth to her, the whole pregnancy. I didn't want to be numb. And I really wanted to put my story out there because I don't think that women know that this is an option, that you can give birth to your stillborn baby outside of the hospital. You can do it at home. You can do it at a birth center. So if anybody has any questions about that or about any of the birthing process, her pregnancy, anything, please comment them or message me on my Instagram. The link is in my bio. Thank you for listening to my story and Maggie's story. I will see y'all in the next video. Please, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel so that you can see any future content and any content about Maggie and dealing with stillbirth. I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye.